Happy Monday, degenerates. Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast right here on the home of fight. It is UFC Vegas 93 fight week, and we are right back in action. Fresh dumpsters to dive into. Let's get this bad boy started. I got a couple of things to go over here at the beginning of the show. This intro is going to be just a little bit longer than normal. Don't you dare skip ahead. We got some good stuff coming. First and foremost, as you can see, we are not wearing the baby blues. We did not have a winning week coming off of UFC Louisville like we thought that we would. We actually started off very strong, smashed that Denise Gomes spot. It was my favorite pick on the entire card. And if we're being honest, it absolutely should have been the Link Memorial Dog of the Week. It was my favorite spot on the card. It was the biggest bet that I had on the card, but I had already proclaimed the Link Memorial Dog of the Week was Chuck Buffalo, and that did not go so well. We got the Dom Reyes. We got a big win from our boy Dom Reyes, but unfortunately those two dogs were not enough. I made too many other mistakes on that particular card, and c'est la vie. It is what it is, unfortunately. We're going to be down like 21 units at this point on the year. We had just gotten to even, and I had back-to-back horrific weeks of betting, and I think I know why. All right. For the last 2 weeks, you guys, I've been hanging out with the two biggest mushes on planet Earth. And no, they're not anybody you have ever heard of. My father-in-law, God bless his soul, kindest and best man I think I've ever met in my entire life, multiple-time cancer survivor, just the cheeriest outlook, my partner in doing fireball shots, the man himself, taught me how to gamble. I wouldn't be the man I am today and on this podcast if it wasn't for him. But I swear, him and his best friend, Mark, the guy I told you guys about a couple weeks ago, who knows Vince from Hell Pichel. Yeah, they are the biggest mushes you've ever seen in your lifetime. And if the two of them agree on a bet, no shot in hell that thing is cashing. In fact, 2 weeks ago, UFC 302, I am at the DraftKings Sportsbook. We are watching in style, right? Like we are Buffalo Wings deep. We have tons of shots being brought to us. We're having a great night. The two of them cashed one ticket each the entire night, okay? One each. And it's because they disagreed on them. My father-in-law decided to tail me in hockey and got a bet in on the Panthers to close out that series. The Florida Panthers in hockey. He won that bet, and it was easy peasy lemon squeezy for them to finish that one out. But Mark don't like hockey, so Mark didn't bet that one. And then Mark decided randomly that he's a fan of the way Nico Price does business. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to bet this guy Nico Price. My father-in-law knows not to do that. Well, guess what? They didn't tail each other, and those are the only two tickets they cashed that night. I've been hanging out with them the last 2 weeks in a row, and they've been tailing every single thing that I've been putting out. So it's not my fault the bets are losing. It's their fault. Blame them. Blame Mark and Scott, the most dynamic duo you've ever seen in your life. Now, if I want to take even just a smidgen of responsibility for the results for the last couple of weeks, I think I figured out what else has happened. And for the last 2 weeks, I've been missing a very, very important piece of the repertoire, and that is the money bucket hat. I have abandoned the bucket money hat for the last couple of weeks. It's been in the laundry, and now we know that this thing is not allowed to leave my head. So I hope everybody is having a kick-ass night. We've got a lot to get to this evening. First and foremost, I gotta shout out my guy Derek Stover. I'm not wearing the baby blues, but what I am wearing is this awesome Fireball Wizard t-shirt that he made for me, and he's eating a box of popcorn, as you can see there. My guy on Instagram, he sent me this in the mail, so thank you so much for the t-shirt, my friend. It is awesome. It is nice. It's big and comfy. And then I have one other shout out to give my guy, the Golden Octagon, who's always in here watching the show and chat with me. He's a card collector. He actually had me on his podcast a couple of weeks back, and he was like, Clint, who are some of your favorite fighters? And he actually sent me, look at this. This is only half. He sent me this giant stack of cards. He got me my boy Chris Curtis. We got some Umar Nurmagomedov in the house. We got a signed Derek Lewis card. Oh, Jamal Hill and my guy TJ Dillashaw. Like I said, that's only half. He gave me just an absolute pile of cards. And if you guys are not aware, I'm a complete addict when it comes to cards. When I started gambling, it's a long-seated addiction stretching all the way back to Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So like I've been a card collector my whole life. So this is freaking awesome. TGO, my man, the Golden Octagon. Thank you so much for the gift. I appreciate the hell out of both of you guys for the gifts here this week. Big pick me up. We needed that, right? We needed that. It's been tough sledding over here for your boy for the last couple of weeks. The last thing that I need to do real quickly here before we get to the breakdowns on this card is, folks, if you remember, we ran the Bet Openly sponsored Gauntlet, a 6-week bankroll challenge on Bet Openly, and I have your results. This past week was the final week for the Gauntlet, and I am ready to give out some cash and prizes. So everybody bear with me here on this one because I got to get this up here for you. We had a hell of a last week, guys. We had an absolutely insane final week for the Gauntlet. Big swaps in the standings. And for your third place winner, we have none other than my guy, Kong Slips, who is coming in at $286.49 worth of profit. Kong, my man, congratulations. $100 is your payout. So this man came in with a $50 bankroll on Bet Openly. He profited $286.49. And now he's getting $100 from our guy Gino, who runs and operates Bet Openly, for landing third here in the contest. For second place, the $200 finisher is none other than your boy, Die Hard MMA Podcast. I profited $403.30. Oh, you guys probably can't even see this. I didn't realize how small that was. That's my bad. There we go. Let me get this number up here so you can actually see what's going on here. So I actually am gonna. I told everybody, hide the bookmarks. There we go. I told everybody that I am not afraid. I am not afraid to compete and even win my own damn contest. We're giving away free money on Bet Openly. I want it too. You got to get through me to get it. I actually had a massive loss here. You guys can see here. This was the UFC 302 week where I tried to bet against Roman Hopilov. I lost $105 that weekend, and I did a Hail Mary, $60 to pay $385. It was Denise Gomes parlayed with Dom Reyes. Somebody booked my action on Bet Openly. Tip of the cap. Thank you very much for that one. I profited $385 on that two-leg parlay, and that brings my total to $403.30 for the 6-week bankroll contest. So I will be in second place collecting that $200 prize. And you guys know what's up. I will absolutely shame these people for not being able to get by me and letting me win second place in the Gauntlet. But I'm probably going to take that $200 and just turn it right back around and do some kind of a cool giveaway or something for the next couple of weeks for you guys, because I'm a man of the people. That's what I do. That's what I do. But first place is Jack K, congratulations, Jack, who beat me by $1. He very similarly threw together a 4-leg parlay here for the final week of the gauntlet, profiting $333.20 for a final score of 404.62. The gauntlet was won by about $1.30 this time around, folks. We have never had that kind of a close finish. I know there's only been 2 of them, but it was an epic finale with gigantic parlays coming through for people to get them into the final. I want to give a shout out to High Waters, who is the only competitor to absolutely run the gauntlet and not have a losing week the entire event. Unfortunately, his final bet slip did not get picked up, so there's no action booked on it. He got a 0 for week 6, so he's not going to be in the top 3, but he did successfully run the gauntlet and never posted an L. And then a second shout out to Sleepy Meg, who did not compete in the first gauntlet, but did complete in the second gauntlet. She was down to her final, I think, $30, $20-30, threw together a parlay, cashed it on week 6 for $217 and an overall profit of $186.96. And somehow, because of the other insane parlays that hit, Sleepy Meg didn't make it into the finishers. But if you had looked at these numbers 1 week ago, guys, prior to the week 6 insanity, Meg would have slotted into the top 3 with that score, because the highest profit was in like the low 200s. So she damn near made it, if not for the rest of the insanity that was the end of this contest. Guys, the Bet Openly Gauntlet has been awesome. It's been fun. It's fantastic. Shout out to our sponsors, Bet Openly. Gino, my guy, thank you very much. If you guys competed in this one, be sure to shout out Gino. Give him some gratitude online, because, hey, if you want to do another one, I'll grease some wheels. I'll do what I can. I'll try to talk to my guy and see if we can get some funding for a third gauntlet, see if he'll let us run one of those here in a couple weeks or something like that. But he's the guy you got to talk to, so let's make it known that that we're grateful for it. And if you guys do want to compete in the next gauntlet, because I'm pretty sure we'll be able to get another gauntlet going, if you guys want to compete in another gauntlet, get signed up on Bet Openly. Like I said, it's a $50 bankroll challenge, so all you got to do is sign up, deposit $50, and you're ready to go, ready to compete, plus all the other benefits from Bet Openly. So make sure you get signed up if you want to take part in the next one. Guys, I tried to hustle through that as best I could. Had a fun story for you, had some guys to shout out, had some winners to give out, and now we can go ahead and get the show started officially. And that means I got to bring in this week's guest. That means I got to bring in this week's expert. You may know this man, multi-time MMA and NFL DFS playing champion, a savant when it comes to the daily fantasy streets, none other than our guy, Kyle Marley. What's going on, my guy? How you doing today? Oh, and we're muted.
There we go. How about now? You hear me?
There it is. I can hear you.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm good, man. I appreciate you having me on the show this week. A little under the weather, so I might be a little short-winded on some of these fights, but I knocked them all out today. Got a winner at least picked for them all. Hopefully you could talk me into a bet or two, maybe. I have nothing yet, but looking forward to talking fights with you.
Love to hear it. I might be able to do that. I've got action out the wazoo this week. Didn't learn my lesson from the past 2 weeks in a row, apparently. Just rapid firing the entire card. No, they can't stop me. I'm doing it again. So hopefully I can steer you right for this one.
Hell yeah. Let's get into it.
Yeah, man. Sorry to hear that you're a little under the weather, but we appreciate you powering through and joining us here on the pod. For you people listening, by the way, we owe a special debt of gratitude to our guy, Kyle Marley, because not only is he powering through being sick on this one, he pulled the late switcheroo for me. I had a scheduling issue, and he moved up the show a week. He was supposed to be next week's guest. He's jumping in this week instead to save my ass. So big shout out to you, man. Thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate you coming in here and doing this with me.
No problem. And anything from my guy, Clint.
All right, that's what's up. That is what's up. All right, everybody, we got 410 live viewers here on the pod, and we ain't even started talking yet. We haven't even gotten to the fights yet. This is Home of Fight. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Hit the like button for me. Really appreciate it. My guy Kong in the chat. I will reach out to Gino, my man. I'll end up scooping your email, and he'll be adding that to your account. So don't worry. We'll get you squared away for that. I'll be reaching out to the winners on Twitter. Only 2 of you, though, because I got second place, suckers. Let's go. First fight of the night. We've got Shayilan Nuerdanbieke. He is taking on Melquizael Costa. And this is a really fun fight to me here, Kyle. We've got Shayilan Nuerdanbieke, who smells like roses, coming off of, a couple of decent fights here and one notable big finish win not too long ago. It's funny, actually, with this fight, both these guys are coming off getting absolutely nuked by my guy, Steve Garcia. I posted on Twitter the other day when I started doing my tape study. I was like, the first thing, it's sad that the first thing I noticed on this card was not who's on this card, but the first thing I thought was, man, we got to get Steve Garcia back in the cage, man. I want to see him in there knocking some more heads around. It's pretty funny that they match these two guys up when they're both coming off that KO loss to the same guy. But prior to the run-in with Steve Garcia, Shayilan Nuerdanbieke had that weird situation where he got the round 1 TKO finish over Derek Minner. The fixed fight, do we want to call it that? Like, he came in with an injury, knew full damn well they were all gonna get paid. One of the craziest line moves we've ever seen. And then Shayilan lets everybody down in his next fight against Steve Garcia as I think a minus 185-ish favorite in that fight. Melquizael Costa, 20-7, 27 years old, shoot the box fighter, also coming off the loss to Steve Garcia. This is the guy who made his short notice debut against Thiago Moises and actually it looked pretty damn good in that fight. If you run that one back with Moises, looked good in round 1 and then kind of death gassed because he was trying to out grapple a better grappler with a full camp and died in the second round. And Thiago Moises got his back, choked him out. He looked much better in his second fight in the cage against Austin Lingo, and actually looked pretty good against Steve Garcia up until similarly, he kind of tired out in the second round, slowed down, and then Steve showed him the door. This is a spot for me, Kyle, where I think Shayilan's going to have an obvious grappling edge. However, I think he's kind of proven that beyond the Derek Minner fight, obviously, he's just not a finisher at the UFC level. You know, you go back to his history and he KO'd a bunch of people early as well, but they're really not good competitors. At the UFC level, he's a grinder. You know, he's grinding out guys like Sean Soriano, TJ Brown. He lost a decision to Josh Kulibau. Like, he just kind of doesn't have the overall skill set that you want to see in the octagon. I think he's going to kind of be a mid-tier guy that really relies heavily on the grappling. And when he can't control people, when he can't keep them down, those guys are going to cause him problems. Melquizael, as long as he's able to not gas himself in the first round going ham on people he's desperate to keep on the floor, I actually think is the better put together fighter. I like the shoot the box style with the long rangey kicks, the way he attacks the body. He's got some decent grappling upside himself, and that's really kind of been the Achilles heel for Shayilan Nuerdanbieke is he's got 6 losses by sub because he just powers his way out of those things, man. He'll get in dangerous positions. He'll get himself caught in submissions. And then it all comes down to that physicality, that explosiveness. He really relies on that to get out of those spots. And I feel like this is a spot where he could get caught. You know, it's either going to be Shayilan Nuerdanbieke by decision or it's going to be Costa, in my opinion. So with more ways to win, I kind of like Costa here, man.
I agree. I mean, I don't know who the better submission grappler is. Maybe it is Costa, but I would think that Nuerdanbieke's one advantage in this fight would be offensive wrestling. If he could just hang tight in top control, maybe he could grind out a decision. He also has power. Maybe he's got more one-shot power than Costa as well. But Costa should be the much slicker, taller, longer, faster striker. And I like his overall striking game a lot more. I think he is going to be our minute winner on the feet. And he could also mix in takedowns of his own, too. So I agree. He's just got more ways to win this fight. I like him to get it done, and he can get it done by any method. So I like Costa in this one. I don't know that I'm going to lay that line or not, but for me, I think it would be favorite or pass in this situation.
Yeah, that's how I'm feeling about it too, man. Favorite or pass. It's a bit of a bummer to see Costa with this kind of a line on him considering, you know, the last couple of fights. But again, I'm just not overly impressed with Shayilan Nuerdanbieke, and I don't know that I want him here in this kind of a spot because his best path, in my eyes at least, is kind of a greasy, grindy decision, and we don't see a ton of these fighters getting rewarded for, you know, for blanket grappling control. And if he goes for the ground and pound and he can't keep this guy down, I think he's going to get outstruck on the feet, and those bigger shots will be eye-catching, you know, kind of the usual talking points. I think he'll get outlanded on the feet when he stands up. So, yeah, Costa is about a minus 185 favorite at this point. And guys, it's that kind of week. If you haven't seen my posts on social media, this is an anchor fight week, ladies and gentlemen. I've picked a fighter who I really like that I do not think is losing on this card, and I have parlayed them with every single other bet so far that I've made on this card to go ahead and get the price tag down, to get it where I want it, so I'm not laying too big of a number, and I'm 2 for 2 on these anchor spots, my guy Kyle. I am feeling it, so I'm hoping that it doesn't let me down this week, because it would just be it would kill me. I would never financially recover if I go 3 weeks in a row where I just get slaughtered. So Costa is minus 185, but thanks to my parlay magic, I have him sitting at minus 106. We will get to it when I talk about my anchor a little later on in the card, but both of us are thinking favorite or pass to start. What's going on, everybody? I see you all in the chat. Thank you all so much for being here. Nearly 500 live viewers. Make sure you check out Kyle Marley. Make sure you check out his content. He is one of the smartest DFS players you'll ever see. His breakdowns are absolutely awesome. And those of you in the chat, sorry I didn't get to the shout outs to start the show, but you know who you are. I appreciate you all being here. Let's keep on rolling, because we got a bunch of fights to get to here, man. Next up, we have got Julia Polastri, and she is taking on Josefine Knutsson. They call her Thunder in a women's MMA spectacular here in this next fight. And Josefine Knutsson is a fighter who, frankly, I didn't really remember. She is 7-0. I'm sorry, I am reading off the wrong fighter here. Polastri. Polastri is the fighter that, frankly, I didn't really recall, man. She's 12-3. This is her UFC debut coming off of Dana White's Contender Series, and she is a 2-time Dana White's Contender Series competitor. Now, Kyle, I have an angle. I have a theory. You know, it's a spot where it's not proven yet. I don't have enough data, but I think I know what's going on. It's these 2-time Dana White Contender Series competitors. If you go on the Contender Series and Dana's just not that impressed with you, and you come back around, even if you get that second win, even if you go ahead and get the UFC contract on that second time around, there's just not a stellar track record for those people. Now, it's not perfect, because the exception to the rule are guys like Bo Nickel, where he just doesn't have enough experience. The UFC's trying to get him some MMA fights under his belt, but they want to keep him signed to the organization so Bellator doesn't swoop in and grab him, right? Like, those are the people that you have to go, okay, they're a 2-time Dana White's Contender Series competitor, but they don't fit the angle, you know, because they're special talents. I'm talking about people like Polastri here, who got on Contender Series and just didn't wow Uncle Dana. And he thought, you know what, maybe come back and try again. And the second time she gets it done, she gets the call. I'm just thinking those people don't have a long lifespan in the UFC. So I'm kind of earmarking that as I continue to gather the data I need to make it a true and real angle. But she's very plodding, man. She kind of walks forward, chucks hands. She's got a big body kick. She does have a nice stiff jab. And I like the combo that she does where she finishes with the high head kick. But she's incredibly hittable. And she's a bit slow. I think she's going to get countered a lot at the UFC level, man. And in her second Dana White's Contender Series fight, we saw that she is willing to just stand in the pocket and trade. Now, that might be the I didn't get the contract effect. That might be the Dana White, you know, saying, hey, show me a little something more this time around. And that's the reason she fought that way. But now she's in the UFC. Maybe she doesn't pull that. But I can't quite get that image out of my head. She's got good ground and pound. I will say she knows how to make opponents kind of carry her weight in grappling transitions. She does have a tight squeeze on her. She opens up the neck with the ground and pound. That part of her game I do like. Polastri will have a 3-inch reach advantage here in this spot, but she's taking on Knutsson. Knutsson is 7-0, also 1-0 off the Contender Series in the UFC here. Got the win, but Dana didn't sign her. So there's a weird narrative with both these women, man. This is the chick who is Khamzat's girl, right? This was a spot that everyone expected female Khamzat Chimaev when she came on Contender Series. And so Dana was incredibly disappointed with her. And I think we're playing some mind games here, man. Now, see, she doesn't fit my angle because Dana talked shit and she didn't get the contract. but she got called up no problem for her UFC debut right around the corner. They didn't make her go back to the Contender Series. I think he was trying to light a bit of a fire under her. They knew what they had. She didn't need to prove shit. She dominated that fight. She got into the UFC. She dominated her debut. I think he was just kind of messing with her and trying to get her going so it was a bit more entertaining and letting her know that he was disappointed, with that grinding, grapply type of decision. But at the end of the day, she's UFC caliber and she was UFC worthy, and they brought her on. This is a spot where she's big, she's physical. Marnik Man is a tough out. She's not the most skilled person in the world, but she is physical. She is strong. And Knutsson dragged her ass around the octagon for 15 straight minutes, man. I think this is a perfect spot for Knutsson to showcase her real ability. She's taking on another fighter who is a grappler who's worse than her. And like I mentioned, the speed, Knutsson can strike. She's pretty quick. She hits pretty hard. And I think Polastri is going to be there on the counter. I think a couple people are going to get suckered into the dog shot on this one, man. And I kind of understand why. But if you look a little bit deeper, I just don't think this is it. They want Knutsson to be something. They're trying to give her some decent matchmaking to have her really take off here. And at 7-0, I think she's going to take out Julia Polastri. And I think she might even get her first finish under the UFC banner here. So I'm all team Knutsson, man. What do you think about this one?
I agree. I don't know about her getting her first finish, but I do think she's just a little bit better everywhere. Maybe not submission grappling, and maybe Polastri is the harder puncher, but I just don't see a knockout happening from Polastri, so I'm not too worried about that. But I just think Knutsson, whatever her name is, I just think she's a high level kickboxer. She's gonna be harder to hit. I kind of think she pieces her up on the feet. She's also really good in the clinch. I think she has a big advantage in the clinch. She used that a lot in the Contender Series fight. And then she's also been working in her wrestling as well. So I think she's probably the better offensive wrestler, can hang tight, stay active in top control. And I like her to win 30-27 here. As long as she can avoid getting taken down herself, I think that's her biggest weakness, is spending too much time on her back, getting taken down a little bit too easily. I think that was some regional scene fights I've seen. But I just don't think that Polastri has that in her game. So give me Knutsson to go out there and win all 3 rounds, but I really like her to have the kickboxing edge in this one. And I was really not impressed with Polastri's previous opponent. She just looked like a punching bag in there. So she still ate too many shots against that girl. I think Knutsson would have destroyed her. So give me the favorite in this one, another favorite or pass for me.
You and I are in lockstep here on this one, man. One of my smaller bets, but again, we've got it anchored with the parlay. She's minus 225 out there right now, guys. I've got minus 130 in my pocket with my 2-legger parlay here. 1.3 units to win one. It is women's MMA at the end of the day. But the more I look at this, man, the more I feel like, lately I've been doing a lot of 2-unit plays rather than 1-unit plays. And I kind of feel like I might need to upgrade this one to being a 2-unit play instead of a 1-unit play, because I really think she's going to win this fight. I do want to look here real quick. We obviously don't have props stateside just yet. Those will open up, Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere in that ballpark. But Knutsson by KO TKO is plus 550 at Bet Online. And I'm hoping we get even a little bit sexier of a number stateside when FanDuel and DK drop those numbers. I will be having a taste of the KO TKO for Knutsson, because whether she gets there via ground and pound or, like I mentioned, just being quick enough to counter on the feet, I think she's got a shot to actually knock this chick out, man. We'll see how that goes. We will see how that goes. All right, everybody, we are moving right along. There's less preamble on the next couple fights, I promise. There was a lot of backstory I had to get through on that one, though. Next up, you've got Jeka Saragih taking on Westin Wilson. Shout out my Uncle Wheezy for teaching me how to say this man's last name correctly. Jeka Saragih. I was in shambles, Kyle. I could not figure out that man's name to save my soul. He is 14-3 coming from the road to UFC, which frankly, out of the Dana White's Contender Series, The Ultimate Fighter, and the road to UFC, I think is the weakest of the 3 feeders. Dana White's looking for a fight maybe on bottom, right? Like if we had to put the 4 in order, what's your, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but what's your ranking, man? We've got Dana White's Contender Series, Ultimate Fighter, road to UFC, and looking for a fight.
Man, I have no idea. I would say you're probably right. Looking for a fight should go last on the list.
Got to be on bottom, right?
Man, I mean, the Ultimate Fighter, I feel like started out great. We had a lot of champions that came from the Ultimate Fighter, but I just don't see anybody recently that's going to be on that radar. But I would say Tough or Contender Series would be first or second. and then road to UFC would be the third for me.
All right. I'm right there with you, man. I think we nailed the order on that one. I would put Tough just ever so slightly higher than Dana White's Contender Series at this point, but we're getting dangerously close to those two flipping, because we've got a couple champions that have come off of Contender Series now. It's just a little younger though, so I'm gonna give Tough its due and put it one slot above, at least for now. At any rate, Jeka, very exciting prospect off of road to UFC, but I kind of struggle with him just a little bit, man. He's a finisher. He's absolutely like an entertaining banger, which seems to be more often than not what we get on Dana White's Contender Series. This guy wants to come out and find blood every single time he's in the cage. He got handled by Anshul Jubli, which is a loss that, quite frankly, doesn't seem to have aged very well with the way that guy's last fight went. So he got the reset button against Lucas Alexander, and now they're kind of softballing here against Westin Wilson. Jeka's got serious power in his hands. He's a wild man on the feet. He's got really awesome submissions and tight squeeze on the mat. So he's a threat no matter where this fight goes. Westin Wilson likes to hang out with the nicest man in UFC history. He's a karate striker, tall, lanky, long, but 16 and 9, 35 years old. I mean, it's kind of a miracle the guy made it here in the first place. He's got back-to-back round 1 KO losses to Brito and Silva. The writing's kind of on the wall for me on this one, man, that even if Jeka isn't the guy, even if he's not going to take off and be a top 15 fighter, the UFC's trying to set him up with a round 1 knockout. They're just like, this Wilson guy is not... He's not supposed to be here except to kind of buff up a couple of other people and get a win. So even though I'm not sold on Jeka, I am going to bet him here. I'm going to pick him to win. I've got him in a parlay, and I think he's probably going to smoke this guy. Maybe it takes him an extra round. Maybe it takes him to round 2. But I do think Jeka goes ahead and gets the win.
Yeah, I think he probably gets a knockout. Wilson just does not eat shots very well. And the one thing Saragih does, or how do you say it? Saragih? Saragih. The one thing he does well is throws bombs. So I do think that he's going to land some big shots, probably put Westin Wilson away in the first round. But I mean, his 3 losses have all come on the ground. That's where Westin Wilson has to get this fight if he wants to have any chance. I think it's more so submission or bust. I don't really see him getting a ground and pound victory over Saragih. But it would not shock me to see him grab a neck at some point and submit him. So I feel like I like under 1.5 rounds more so than just picking the Saragih side. But I think you're right. It's probably a first round either way, and I do think that Saragih gets the knockout. So that's going to be the pick, but I just don't trust him enough to pay that wide of a line. I guess if you're going to do it over anybody, it's Westin Wilson.
Exactly.
But he does have a path to victory, in my opinion, with a submission. I just don't think it's very likely.
I hear you. No, for sure. Now, even though Wilson is 0-2 in the UFC, guys, he's got 11 wins by sub. 11. That is his path to victory. This guy can snatch a neck up, and he can do it with a quickness. Most of those come in round 1. So when he wins, he's choking people out. He's catching arm bars. It just... triangle chokes. He's one of these long, lanky bastards. So you got to watch out for the anaconda. You got to watch out for the triangle. He could be a little bit crafty, and he could snatch a neck. So can't count that possibility out. And that's why, I've only got one parlay with Jeka linked into it, because he could be the parlay buster this week. It's totally possible for Westin Wilson to get him in a transition and just lock up a neck or something like that. Richie in the chat asking how many dogs this week. Not as many, Richie, not as many. I will tell you guys, though, last week I said that I think if you blindly played every single dog on the card, 1 unit, I think you'd profit. And I didn't go back and calculate it, Kyle, but I think it was close. I think I might have been correct in that assumption. This close, man, this close to betting Zach Reese. I had several people who I very much value their opinions on the other side of that fight. And it kind of turned into a pass for me, because I kind of liked Reese, but I wasn't convicted. And smart people I know were taking Marquez. So I was like, I'm just going to leave it alone. I almost got myself on another winning dog last week, but last week we'll move on. That's in hindsight. Next up, we've got Carli Judice. They call her Crispy, which I love, by the way. That's an awesome nickname. Taking on Gabriella Fernandez, Gabby herself. Now, Judice is someone who I find extremely interesting here, Kyle. She is maybe a future talent. She's 3-1, 25 years old. We've talked about this before, guys. there are not very many fighters these days who get signed that early to the UFC. Usually when that happens, it's either a mistake or they're special. Those are kind of the two categories when they get signed super early, is it's an oops and we thought this person had it, or they're a complete badass. I think Carli might be a complete badass, Kyle. She is apparently a lifelong athlete. I guess she played softball before she got into martial arts, but she's got a mean streak in her, man. She's got that competitive nature. She goes for the kill. She absolutely comes out guns blazing, wings, wild shots. She's got decent pop in her punches. She's got some power, very long, very rangy, keeps a hell of a pace. And she lost her Dana White Contender Series fight via split, but got the call anyway. I mean, it's one of those spots where Dana saw this chick and was like, I like her. You know, she had her face busted up 2 minutes into that fight, just running face first into punches. Never blinked, never stopped coming forward. I love it. She's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here in this spot. And I believe she did some work with like Andrea KGB Lee coming into this fight, which don't get me started on KGB Lee, Kyle. I swore that I would not lose any more money on Andrea Lee. And then last week, I talked myself into betting her. Okay, tangent, real quick, small tangent. Andrea Lee looked career best in round 1 on Saturday, folks. Career best. I was counting my money after deciding to take the plunge and go to war with KGB Lee one more damn time. And then she has a threesome in the corner. Her boyfriend, notable Nazi, comes in the corner and kisses her on the mouth after talking to her about strategy. And the girl who's holding like the ice pack and towel smooches her too. It was like, what is happening right now, man? How could she possibly have been focused coming out in round 2 after having a menage a trois between rounds? I am so lost. I am done. I am breaking up with Andrea Lee. I will never bet on her ever again after that one because she shut down completely. She had nothing left to give in round 2, and she didn't bother showing up for round 3 either. Kyle, I was pissed, mostly at myself. But when you see someone smooching in the middle of a cage fight, the brain ain't there. The brain ain't there. You're not sold in this fight right now the way that you should be if you're in your corner getting kisses in the middle of a fight. That's just bad IQ, okay? For the trainer, for the fighter, I'm not having it. We're done. If that's the kind of shit you're pulling, we're done. Anyway, back to this fight. Sorry about that. Judice, I think, is someone who could learn, though, from the raw skill set of an Andrea KGB Lee. Prime Andrea Lee. This chick kind of reminds me of her. And if you can take that kind of training partner, that's perfect. That's home. Gabriella Fernandez, 8-3, 30 years old. Training out of MMA Masters from what I see. She was in the LFA before she made it to the UFC. And so far, just has not had a very good run in the UFC. She is 8-3, like I mentioned. 2 of those 3 losses are her back-to-back fights here under the UFC banner. And it's Teresa Bleda and Jasmine Jasudavicius. Now, this is where it gets interesting, Kyle, because if you take Teresa Bleda and you line her next up to Jasudavicius, they're the same fighter. Like, they're massive for the weight class. They're weight, size, grapple bullies, and that's what they do. If they're big enough to like completely overpower you and TKO you or sub you, they can do that. But it's not so much like a high-level skill set, is that they're just more physical than the other women in the cage. Gabriella doesn't have spectacular takedown defense, but she is big. She is strong. She hits like a truck, and she's got not fast hands, but very accurate hands. And if you go back and you run that Teresa Bleda fight, man, she almost had Bleda out of there in the 3rd round. Bleda was dead tired from trying to take this monstrous woman down and control her. And then she was getting torched on the feet when she didn't have the gas to do it again for a 3rd round. So I think what the UFC is trying to do is set up Carli Judice, somebody who's got a maybe similar skill set to those 2 girls, and see if she can grind her way to a decision over this beastly woman, Gabriella Fernandez. The problem for me, Kyle, is I'm not sure she's there yet. You know, at 3-1, she doesn't have the time. She doesn't have the ring time. She doesn't have the experience. And she's more of an aggressive kickboxer than she is a grappler. The grappling will come, but I don't think she's there yet to be able to take down Fernandez and control her for 15 straight minutes. So if we're talking kickboxing, yes, she's faster. Yes, she's younger, but she may not be nearly as physically imposing, and I doubt she hits as hard. I want to bet Judice as a dog here. I want to bet on the upside. I want to bet on the improvements. I want to bet on Dana knowing what he's doing. But I'm kind of afraid that Fernandez is just going to be too big, too strong, and hit too hard for her too early in her career.
I mean, I'm not going to be the one to talk you into a bet here, but I am siding with the underdog in this one.
Okay.
More so because of the line. I do think that it's going to be a strikers match both ways. And the way I see it is that Fernandez is probably the one landing the harder shots over the course of 3 rounds, but Judice is ahead on volume. And then it comes down to trusting the 3 idiot judges. One of them's going to say 30-27 Fernandez. One of them's going to say 30-27 Judice. And then it comes down to the third corrupt one. What are they going to say? And I always want to side with the plus money in that situation. And I also think that Judice is going to be the one improving more so fight to fight, whereas I think we know what we're going to get from Fernandez at this point. I just don't agree with her being over minus 200 favorite. I think it should be closer to minus 150 or so. So I do think the value is on the underdog. Not a strong opinion or anything. I just think that the plus money is the way to side in this one. So she is my pick, but I highly doubt I get there with a bet just because I don't trust either one of them, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. And I'm with you, man. I want to bet on the upside. I want to bet on the young fighter. This reminds me a little bit of Fugitt last week, right? The narrative was there. First ever Indian women's MMA fighter. And frankly, between you and I, Kyle, I don't think she won that fight, man. I think they robbed Rayan dos Santos blind again for a second time in her UFC career. But because it was a close fight, and it was back and forth, and you can justify basically any scorecard you want when the fights are close like that, they gave it to the girl they wanted to win, who was a big plus money underdog. If it's going to split decision, I want the plus money. I love that angle, so I can't blame anybody at all for taking that spot. Yeah, Ian saying nobody thinks she won. Hey, shout out to my boy Liam. I know Liam cashed the ticket, and hey, if you're playing the narrative train and you got paid by Tomar getting that robbery split decision, more power to you, man. That's something, Kyle, I think I've got to fix in my own game when it comes to betting, is that if somebody is on all the steroids, if somebody is the narrative run that the UFC wants them to win, just take it. Instead of sitting on my podcast and bitching about it and saying how they're not good enough and they're not going to get there, I recognize the signs. Just bet it. Just bet the side that they want to win, because that's what keeps happening. I made that move with Sean O'Malley. I bet him as a big plus money underdog, not once, but twice, because he was in close fights that they wanted him to win. And sure enough, he did, and that's exactly what happened with Fugitt. Maybe that's what's happening with Judice this weekend. She's the young fighter off Contender Series. They're trying to give her a favorable matchup. Maybe plus money is the way to go.
Yeah, if I think that the UFC has a motive in a fight, I usually like to side with them.
Yeah.
But I don't know that Judice is that type of girl that they just really want to win. I don't even think they care who wins this fight, to be honest.
Yep. And yes, look, Joshua Frick, Dana said 4 days before that they want India more involved. Shocker that the Indian fighter won via split decision when Dana said they want India more involved. That 30-27 that was scored was just, woof, man. We got to watch out for spots like that. We could have all cashed in there easy peasy. But I was too convinced that she was not UFC caliber. Next fight up, man, we got Garrett Armfield taking on Brady Hiestand in a fight that is so much better than I expected. When I saw these names, I was like, oh, man, I don't know. I'm just not really sold on either guy, Kyle. But then once I kind of started digging into it, the more I looked at it, the more I like this fight. This is going to be fun. So we've got Armfield, who is really kind of taking everybody by storm right now. He's got a social media presence. He's doing a lot of work on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. He's 10-3, 2-1 in the UFC, training over at Marathon MMA under Ogden, who I actually think, guys, is kind of an up-and-coming mind in the MMA space. I like Trey Ogden. I think he's very smart, and he's doing a lot with the game plans, and his game plans specifically. He always seems to know exactly what he's doing, and he sticks to those game plans. And if he can teach some of these young fighters up that same way, we could have a gym on the rise here under his leadership. Now, Armfield has good power. He's got lots of early finishes. And then he came out and surprised everybody in the Katona fight by putting together a full 15 minutes following a game plan and not relying on one big hitter quitter shot. He landed over 100 significant strikes in that fight, which was really impressive because, frankly, I didn't know that he was capable of that kind of a fight, man. I thought that Katona was going to win that fight because Armfield would fail to knock him out early and then tire himself out. And instead, he just banged with him for the full 15 and showed that he had a whole lot more in the tank. He gave up 4 takedowns, but held Katona to just 4 minutes of control. So I was really impressed with Garrett Armfield. Now, watching Katona's last fight, maybe we sour on that performance a little bit. He couldn't get a punching bag out of there in his last fight. But Armfield has good hands, a good chin, better cardio than I suspected, good coach, good game plan. That could take you places. Brady, he stands 7-2, 2-1 off the Ultimate Fighter. His only loss being that split decision to Ricky Tercios. Nice head movement, good footwork. He made Dana Bakary really kind of chase him around the cage. And then he's just got gorgeous timing on his level changes, man. When he shoots, he gets you right when you're off balance, right when you overcommit. Once you bite on a feint, then all of a sudden you're on your ass. I love the way Hiestand wrestles. He's tough as nails. If you're looking for a fighter to put your money on that's got that dog in him, that's Brady Hiestand, man. His last fight, he was down in that fight and then decided to put his opponent on his ass and just beat the brakes off of him in round 3 until the referee stepped in and called him off. Now, Dana kind of waved the white flag there. He wasn't really getting hurt. The punches weren't really forceful. He was in an awkward position, and it's a weird stoppage, especially considering the kind of stoppages we just had over the last couple of events where they were either super late or super early and super, confrontational, that kind of thing. Weird stoppage for him to get the 3rd round TKO victory, but he's a guy who has 0 quit in him. And that's something that I do personally like to see. Hiestand will have a 1-inch reach advantage. He averages 4 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he lands with a 45% accuracy. I actually kind of think this is dog or pass. I know there's a lot of reasons to like both guys. Armfield is a -180 at this point. You can get +150 on Brady Hiestand. I'm not betting this one, or at least I haven't yet, Kyle, but I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever if Hiestand doesn't just kind of put on a pace that Armfield can't keep up with and do what I thought Katona was going to do the first time. So I'm going to kind of just sit back and watch on this one because what I wanted Katona to do, I think Hiestand will do. So I don't want to go against my own narrative the last time I broke down this kind of a stylistic matchup. Maybe I'm still underrating Armfield. Maybe I'm not. And that's why I don't really want to second guess myself here. I think I'm going to pick Hiestand for the win, but I'm not confident enough to put my money there. What about you?
Man, we're seeing everything pretty much the same on this card. I think it's dog or pass as well. I just think it's a striker versus grappler matchup where whoever can dictate where the fight's going to take place should win. If Armfield can stuff takedowns, then I think he could dominate the fight on the feet. But I think Brady Hiestand could win all 3 rounds if he's able to go out there and land takedowns, which he should be looking for takedowns early and often. And I also think he's in play for a submission at some point as well. So yeah, at this line, if I had to bet it, I would much rather take the +1 or +150 over that -180 on the Armfield side. So give me Hiestand. I usually do prefer the grappler over a striker in those stylistic matchups too. So that's another reason I like Hiestand. So yeah, I'll agree with you once again, and I'll take the underdog on this one.
Okay. All right. We are in lockstep so far to start this card, and that always makes me feel pretty good. I like it when people that are smarter than me agree with me. Rope Lord, you get the hell out of my chat. You stop it right now. Banned for life immediately. All right, man. Let's move on. And it is time, ladies and gentlemen. It is time. Next fight up, we've got Nate Maness taking on Jimmy the Brick Flick. And I'm going to make this as concise as I can for you guys. Nate Maness is the anchor this week, okay? The anchor is a new angle that I've started using when I'm betting MMA, and that's when I've got one guy that I'm just so supremely confident in and they're not losing, I decide to use them to bring the price tag down on anybody else that I like. Now, this is an all or nothing type of betting system because if the anchor loses, if I'm wrong, everything goes down in flames. So I do always end up having a couple plays that are detached from the anchor, but it will ruin my night if Nate Maness loses at UFC Vegas 93. But he's not going to. He's not going to. Nate Maness is absolutely massive for this weight class. I'm frankly not sure how he cuts down to this weight class. He is freaking enormous, but he does. And when he gets into the octagon, he is refueled and vicious. He's got decent enough cardio. He's got good takedown defense, 78% takedown defense rating, by the way. And he's so big and so physical that he is extremely hard to control once he gets put down. Now, you might look back on his record and go, well, he got ground out by Umar Nurmagomedov. Well, folks, Umar is going to be the next champion at 135 pounds. Now, since dropping down a weight class, he did get his neck snatched by Tagir Ulanbekov. And is that a little bit of a concern? Yeah, obviously it is. When you're going up against Jimmy Flick, you don't want to see a guy losing by sub. But Tagir Ulanbekov is a neck merchant. That's what this guy does. Frankly, that's his best move. He's got 9 wins. They're all by sub. He doesn't have a single knockout on his record. He just snatches necks. And Nate Maness made the mistake of shooting for a takedown and leaving his neck out there on that guy. Jimmy Flick is not a guy that Nate is going to be looking for takedowns on. I love Jimmy Flick. I'm a big fan of his. But he should have stayed retired, Kyle. He's 30 plus years old. I think, he's 33 years old. And he has already called it quits from a lifetime of martial arts. He has 6 losses by KO. He came back and he got a win against Malcolm Gordon, who has since been released from the organization, was 34 years old and literally the bottom of the barrel. The worst UFC fighter on the roster. That's who Jimmy Flick came back and beat. But anybody with any type of power whatsoever, this man crumples under. I love Jimmy Flick, but this is going to be a public execution. Nate Maness is going to come forward. He's going to be too long for Flick. He's going to hurt him nearly immediately. Flick is not a good wrestler. He is not an Ov. He's not a Nurmagomedov. He's not an Ulanbekov. He will not be able to take Nate Maness down. So unless Nate somehow lets this man jump on his back or he gets flying heel hooked like Anderson Silva did, he's going to knock Flick out in the first round. Nate Maness is my anchor this week. He is not losing. He's winning by round 1 KO. And I'll make it even better for you guys. If Nate Maness loses, not only am I going to lose piles of my own hard-earned money, okay? It's going to be brutal. The amount of parlays I have linked to Nate Maness is going to financially bankrupt me. But if he loses, my next 7-unit bet, my next max bet, for those of you who haven't been following me online, is a parlay, Umar Nurmagomedov and Peyton Talbot. It's a 2-legger parlay, 7 units to win like 3.5 or something like that. Peyton Talbot fights at UFC 303. Kyle, if Nate Maness loses on Saturday, I will shave. No. I will have my chest waxed. And I'm a hairy beast. I will have my chest waxed on camera. And then I'm not going to get a tattoo, but I will Sharpie, permanent marker, whatever you guys want. I'll do the hollow hole on my chest. I'll do the Peyton Talbot tattoo on my chest after not shaving, after waxing my chest. If you guys haven't seen me take the top off, there's your preview. Look at that. Look at all that. That will not be comfortable. So yeah, if Maness loses, not only am I losing piles, but I will wax this bad boy and I'll film it and I'll put it up on for you guys. So I'm going balls in, baby. Trust those balls. Nate Maness season, first round. That's what's up. Kyle, talk to me. You better not say anything about Flick winning this thing.
No, I mean, I didn't know I was rooting for Flick until right now, but no, I don't want you to lose that money, but it would be funny to see you get waxed. So at least there is something, I guess, that we get out of it if Flick is able to get it done. But it's first round submission or bust for Flick. And you mentioned he's not a good wrestler, so I don't see him going out there shooting double legs. He's going to be diving for a leg, hoping he can get it to the ground, maybe pull it up to where Nate Maness doesn't have any balance anymore. And if he doesn't get his first submission attempt or second submission attempt, I just think it goes downhill for him from there. Because if he's not going to get it when they're dry, I don't know how he's going to get it when they're all sweaty. And he has no chance on the feet. Like, he's a submission grappler only. And if Maness wanted
Without
to,
the
he
wrestling.
could go out there and
He's
wrestle
a
him.
submission grappler without the wrestling.
Yeah, and that's never a good thing to back on. And like I said, I think Maness could go out there and wrestle if he wanted to, but Flick cannot go out there and strike if he wants to. So first round submission or bust for Flick, but I don't think he's going to get it, and I think he's going to get knocked out in the first or the second round as soon as that first submission attempt fails. If he even gets a chance to get a first submission attempt, it could just be one-way traffic for Maness. So I don't think you have anything to worry about with the waxing, but it would be funny to see.
Now I know I got everybody rooting against me here on this one, man. And my biggest piece of the puzzle here is just like recent form. Guys, Charles Johnson knocked this guy out in the first round. I'm a Charles Johnson fanboy. You guys know how many times I've gone to war with CJ. I think he's been underrated. I think he's had tough matchmaking. I think he's better than we've seen with all these short notice fights. Charles Johnson nuked this man in the first round. On Charles Johnson's best day, he's a death by 1,000 cuts fighter. He's an exhaust you and TKO or submit you in round 3 type of fighter. He's a decision guy, and he got Flick out of there in the first round. Maness is a murderer. Maness is a finisher. He's not going to wait for you to get tired. He takes your head off. Like, I think there's a huge difference in physicality here, and I think poor Flick is, he's going to have a bad day on Saturday. All right, man. That was the big one. Everybody knows now. All the fights that I've played on this card are parlayed with Nate Maness, and that's how I got the numbers that I did for this week. So if you guys question, you see the post, how'd you get that number? It don't exist. It's parlayed with Nate Maness. That's how. There's always, I was going to say there's always one, but there's always like 5 or 6. People don't understand the parlays when I post them, apparently. Next fight up, everybody. Tagir Ulanbekov taking on Joshua Van. And we just spoke about Tagir Ulanbekov. This is the man who managed to go ahead and lock up that choke on my guy, Nate Maness. He is, and I've said this every time I've done the breakdown, Kyle. Every single time I've done the breakdown. In my opinion, he is the weakest link of Team Khabib. He's the one that when you like line them up, it's like one of these things ain't like the other. Like he's a bit too long and lanky. He can't quite wrestle like the rest of them. His striking isn't quite good enough to be like a Zabit. You know what I mean? Like I just don't think he's quite as good as the rest of them are. Now that said, he's still 32 years old, 15-2. So he's got a spectacular record. He's still very good. He does have 9 wins by submission. So the opportunistic grappling is just a thing of beauty. I cursed Cody Durden, folks. I did it. I told you guys I was fading Cody Durden. I bet against him every single fight that he's ever had in the UFC. And then we made up. We made buddies. We're friends now. And immediately I bet on him because I finally believe, and that's the first fight he loses. I straight up cursed Cody Durden in the Tagir Ulanbekov fight the last time out. But he got choked out in round 2. And that's what this guy does. Is he'll fight competitively with you. He'll fight long. And once you make a mistake, he will snatch your neck, whether it's a rear naked choke, a high elbow guillotine, those Ezekiel chokes. Like this guy's nasty, man. He's very opportunistic, but if you don't give him that chance, he loses minutes and he can get outlanded. You know, you go back to like the Tim Elliott fight, couldn't keep him down. Got outpaced by Tim Elliott. You go back to the Bruno Silva fight. And frankly, man, that was a very close fight. Bruno Silva was having success. This short little stocky dude was exploding into range and tagging him on the chin. It was a very, very competitive back and forth fight that night. Now, Joshua Van, he's everybody's favorite. They call him the Fearless, which is just such a good nickname for him. I think that's new. Am I wrong, Kyle? Because I don't think he had a nickname last time he fought.
I'm not a nickname kind of guy. I would have no idea.
All right. Well, I don't think he had a nickname. So if he's recently dubbed the Fearless, it's perfect. That's such a good name for this kid. 10-1, 22 years old. He is so young, and this is his 4th fight in a calendar year. He made his UFC debut 1 year ago against Zhalgas Zhumagulov. He's 3-0 in the organization, and he's getting better. He's getting better fast. He won a split over Zhalgas, which was a close fight. And then he ripped up Kevin Boras, and then he finished Felipe Bunes. Like, this kid is on the right path, and he is storming the UFC right now. He's got a great get-up game. He's explosive. He's strong. He's got great balance. His wrestling defense, while it's something that he struggled with early on, is rapidly getting better. I mean, this is the 22-year-old stud that we're looking for. This is the hottest prospect in the game right now. And I will bank on the fact that he's just getting better. 78% takedown defense. He held Bunis to 2 of 6 attempts. And even in his UFC debut, he held Zalgas to 1 of 5. So taking on a Nurmagomedov or an Ulanbekov, it's obviously a big step up in competition. It's a big level difference in the grappling. However, I feel like we've kind of seen the pieces laid out that a guy like this can fight effectively with Tagir Ulanbekov. It's just, is he ready for that step up yet or not? Now, the UFC originally had Josh Van paired up with Tatsuro Taira. And I'm going to switch hats real quick here, Kyle. I'm going to switch hats. There's a reason that this is not Taira versus Van, your UFC Fight Night, guys. There's a reason this is not UFC Fight Night, Van versus Taira. And that reason is, why would they have either one of these super exciting prospects lose? Why? Instead, they're giving them both notable, winnable, respectable matchups that they can absolutely come out on top with. Rather than having these two awesome prospects kill each other on the way up and have one of them take an L and go the wrong way, they can both continue trending the right direction. And that's what I think is happening here, Kyle. I know it's a long shot. I know it's a step up in competition. I know it's a very scary submission artist. And if this man finds Josh Van's neck because he's not quite seasoned enough yet to defend it, he makes a mistake, he gives up one opportunity, it could all be over. But this is the Link Memorial Dog of the Week. We are rocking with Joshua Van to come out here and keep doing what this kid has done his entire UFC career. Move forward, defend the takedown, use the underhooks, and then punch this man in the mouth until he quits. I think Josh Van is going to win this fight, man. It's probably going to be a decision. I don't know if he's got quite enough sauce to get Tagir out of there. He is a little on the smaller side. He's the Energizer Bunny type. And even though he got a finish in his last fight, Tagir being a step up, I think it's going to be a decision. I don't think it'll be a knockout, but I do think Josh Van's going to win this fight. And again, I am using the anchor strategy, man. I'm not playing plus 190, even though I think that's a perfectly fine number. I am so confident in Nate Maness that I parlayed him with Josh Van, and I got plus 255 on Josh Van for Saturday, and I could not be more hyped. I've let my boy Linky down one too many times the last couple of weeks. This ain't it. This is the underdog for this week, Kyle. Josh Van keeps on rolling, baby. What are you doing here?
I think it's going to be our first one disagreeing on, but I don't hate the number. I did think that the line would be a little bit closer. Van should be the clear better striker. I love his volume. I love his boxing. And you're right, he's young. He should get better every single time out. But this is by far his toughest grappling test to date. And I think in that Zalgas fight, one of the commentators mentioned that he had only been working on his grappling for like 6 months or so at that time. So if you're saying he's only got 18 months of grappling training and now you got to go against Ulanbekov, I just don't think that that's going to be enough. And I think that the biggest edge in this fight will be Ulanbekov on the ground. So I think he's going to get a submission at some point. Maybe he could grind out 2 rounds. But if he's not able to get the takedowns, then you're probably right. Van probably picks him apart. Maybe could get a TKO. If not, then he probably just out-volumes him en route to a decision. But I just think the grappling step up is just a little bit too much at this point in his career. Maybe he'll learn a lot from it, come back even better. But I'm going to take Ulanbekov to get a submission at some point.
Okay, fair enough, man. That's like taking Islam by sub against Dustin, right? Like, yeah, like it's probably the most likely outcome. You can't slip up with that guy. One mistake and that's it. It's over. So I hear it. I hear you. There absolutely is a chance that he slips up, makes a mistake, and gets his neck snatched. But I'm going to choose to believe in the kid. I'll roll the dice one more time. I know Van is going to be a very popular, probably very public play because he's been doing so good. And now he's plus money. I get that. I just still think he can win this fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll be rooting for you. I don't think I'm going to be playing Ulanbekov unless it is like a submission prop for something small. So, yeah, I'll be rooting for you. I do like Van, though, just as a prospect in general.
I feel better about that then. If you're not confident enough to put your hard-earned money on it, then it's just a lean. That I feel a little bit better about it. Dixon Sider saying, "Can I interest you in the Van split decision?" Yes. Yes, my friend, you can. That might be a sharp, nasty look there, because the split decision is always going to be a nice extra juice little number there. And hey, my guy, I shouted you out at the top of the show. A Gross Infection is my boy who sent me the t-shirt. It's awesome. It's super comfy. Fits great. Thank you very much, my friend. I'm loving it. My wizard popcorn here. My fireball and popcorn going on. Great design. It's awesome. All right, everybody, real quick, let's shout out those sponsors. First and foremost, obviously, Home of Fight. If you guys didn't know, we have a Telegram group going, and it's got a news blast option. We just got our boy from right here, Home of Fight, Gilbert Burns fight announced. He's taking on Brady. That should be an absolute banger. Gilbert Burns is part of the Home of Fight crew, so we're going to be rooting our asses off for him to bounce back in that spot. But seriously, you don't want to miss any type of MMA news. Join this Telegram group. The link will be in the description below. And I got to get used to this shit because I didn't know that you could have Telegram groups like this. So it's super cool technology for me here. Next up, we got Spectation Sports. If you guys want to watch regional MMA shows, they've got some really good contracts, really good groups. Mecca's coming up. Aries Fight Series is coming back at the end of the month. This is where you can find all of those. If you use my link or promo code DIEHARD, you'll get a 20% discount on your subscription. So you want to make sure you use my code, get that break there. If you're studying for Dana White's Contender Series, if you're just looking for MMA action, these are the shows that you're going to be looking for. And most of them, like 90% of them, do have betting odds. And I believe they just partnered with BetMGM. So you should have numbers for all of these fights coming forward. You can bet on them as well. Check out Spectation Sports. Please use my link in the description below. It'll make sure you get a break when you sign up. Next up, Fight Numbers. And I'm glad this thing blocks out your password there because I forgot to log in. Fight Numbers is where you can go to get all kinds of DFS knowledge. This is the boys with John Kelly heading that group over there. Pepe Silva, Evan, who, by the way, has had a turnaround in his life and is a much kinder human being these days. Love to see it. They've got awesome tools for DFS. I broke even last week on DFS, Kyle. On a week where I got slaughtered at UFC 302, I made a couple $100 on DraftKings. On a week where I got slaughtered, I broke even on DraftKings. It is all thanks to the boys at Fight Numbers. Same thing there. If you're interested, use my link in the description below or promo code DIEHARD. We'll get you a break when you sign up for their services. And I think my favorite thing on here is their odds board. I've had a couple of different services that you can go to for like your odds and finding the best number on the market, stuff like that. Theirs is up to date and it uses all the big names, so you're not going to have to use a subpar site for that anymore. Finally, Bet Openly. Guys, we kicked off the show talking about the Gauntlet 2 and the giveaway that we did. We literally just gave away $600. Bet Openly has been the coolest sponsor for me to work with. Not only are they fantastic for gamblers because it's 1% juice, you guys are saving money lifelong when you use this platform, and that is better than any sign-on bonus than you'll get from any other company out there ever. But they're doing cool shit like that with me. And that's my favorite thing. You guys know I do everything I can to give you deals, to find awesome stuff for you, to find tools and smart people for you. Bet Openly is allowing me to do giveaways. We just gave out $600 cash for free just for coming in and signing up here and playing in a contest that I ran. So please make sure you check out Bet Openly. Again, the description will be in the link, but you can find better numbers on every single thing here. And they just rolled out props. So guys, you can actually come in here, player props. You can pick your sport. You can find points, pick your team, overs and unders. So it's not just money line. That is obviously, in my opinion, the best way to use this is money line sports like hockey, like MMA. It gets the numbers into a much more generous realm here where you're getting a great deal. So like in this case, Melquizael Costa, if you don't want to lay minus 185, you got minus 176 on Bet Openly. Because of the 1% juice, you're getting a better number. Sign up, come check it out, save money, and this platform works in areas where you might not be able to gamble or bet otherwise. Like California, for example, they're licensed under DFS, which actually means that California allows them to operate in their state. So you can bet on Bet Openly where you wouldn't be able to bet on MGM or DraftKings or FanDuel because those places are not legalized in that state. So check your states, check where they're available. This is a wonderful tool for gamblers. Please check them out. You won't regret it. It's been awesome and you save money using it. So, all right, that's it for the sponsors. We've got 763 live viewers. We are kicking ass and taking names here on a Monday yet again. Thank you all so much for being here. Make sure you check out my guy Kyle Marley, our guest this week, and we will move right along. Adam Fugitt takes on Josh Quinlan in the next fight here, and I'm stoked for this one, Kyle. So first off, you guys know I love my mangy dogs. You guys know I love my underrated fighters. I try to find that, that gem underneath the rock that everybody else has abandoned. And that's Adam Fugitt for me. He's a guy that is so much better, I think, than he gets credit for. He's 9-4. He's 35 years old, so he's a little bit up there in age, and that's not great. But his skill set is fantastic. He's a BJJ. I think he got promoted to black belt. He's either a brown belt or a black belt, but he's very good in that area. He's big. He's physically strong. He's got power. He knows how to grapple, and he just moved out to fight ready. So I couldn't be happier right now with my pick here with Adam Fugitt, because I think he's underrated and he's got all the tools he's going to need to take on a guy like Josh Quinlan, who frankly hasn't looked himself since he got to the UFC. 6-2, 31 years old, so he's also not on the young side in this spot either. He is 0-2 in his last 2 fights. His only win under the UFC banner is a KO over Jason Witt, who is notably the chinniest man this roster has ever had on it. He lost to Trey Waters, he lost to Danny Barlow, and even his Dana White's Contender Series was overturned to a no contest for him popping for PEDs. Now, in the post-USADA era, there's always the chance that Josh Quinlan finds the right concoction to turn it around and get that vaunted power back in his hands. But we didn't see it against Danny Barlow, man. And he got the brakes beaten off him by Danny Barlow. If you guys go back and rewatch that fight, look at the end of it. Look at the finishing sequence. I don't think I've ever seen somebody as lumped up as I saw Josh Quinlan. He had like 6 different hematomas on his face. His eye was completely swollen shut, and it wasn't even like part of a hematoma. They were all different spots on his head. He took so much damage in that finishing sequence. After getting like 100+ significant strikes landed on him from a guy who's got ungodly power, in round 3, he got flurried on, where Barlow finally just decided, this guy's got nothing for me. I'm going to nuke him. And he hit him with such devastating force. It's like a 20-minute segment where he's like floundering around the cage and like flopping against the fence. They had to save this guy's ass. That's the kind of damage that you take that you may not have the confidence in yourself the next time around. That's the kind of, I don't want to call it a life-changing beating, because we've seen some of those where guys just don't come back the same. But after taking an L where you looked bad and then coming back and getting your ass whooped that way, and then having the damage accumulated at the end of it, like this guy could be broken after that, Kyle. He really could. So I've got way too many questions about Quinlan. Without the juice, I don't think he's the same guy. And even if he does get the juice back, I'm not entirely sure he's good enough to beat a guy like Fugitt, who's been pretty tough and pretty durable. He can get club and sub. That's been his thing, is if you hurt him and then you tap him, he'll go down that way. But he's very hard to like straight up knock out. The one time he did in the UFC, it was kind of a mercy stoppage against Michael Morales. He wasn't out yet. The ref saved him in that spot. And yeah, you can hear my boy Bolin going off in the background. He's saying the dogs are barking. Well, my boy Adam Fugitt is ever so slightly the underdog here in this spot. And you guessed it, I went ahead and parlayed him up with Nate Maness, man. Just a little 2-unit shot here. I say a little 2-unit shot. That's like my standard bet these days. Plus 134 is what I have on Adam Fugitt. I think he's going to get his hand raised on Saturday. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I agree. I think that the best thing about Quinlan's game is the power in his hands, and Fugitt's been knocked out twice. So if Quinlan can land a big shot, maybe he can knock out Fugitt, but I don't know that he is the better striker over the course of 3 rounds. I think Fugitt's probably going to be ahead on volume, actually. And I also think Fugitt's the better wrestler and grappler in this one. So I think he has more ways to win. I thought the line would shift the other way with Fugitt being a slight favorite. But yeah, I would much rather take the plus money side of this one. He's a little bit older, has been knocked out a couple times, but I'm just not really impressed with Quinlan other than the power in his hands, which, as you mentioned, we haven't even seen that in the last couple fights. So give me Fugitt. I like that play. And maybe that's an underdog I'll be looking at as well.
Let's go, Kyle. Let's go. I love to hear you with me on the Fugitt train for this one, because I'm right there with you. When it's a volume game, I think Fugitt is going to have the volume. Both guys are tough. Both guys are durable. I think Fugitt's going to wrestle better. He's at a good gym now instead of training in somebody's backyard. He's got a great head coach with a good, solid game plan, working with high-level guys. Like he was talking about Kelvin Gastelum being his main sparring partner for this one. He's gonna, if you can improve at 35, he's gonna improve. So I think he's going to come in with everything he needs to go ahead and get this win in this kind of a spot. Long-term success, maybe not, but I just think he's a dog that's going to be a tough out for anybody. And I don't think Quinlan is some stud. He's not a 27-year-old who I expect to get way better from here. If he gets on all the juice and he nukes this guy early, okay, you got me. But if he doesn't, yeah, I think Fugitt just kind of beat him up for 15 minutes.
I like it.
Glad we're on the same page, man. Let's freaking go. All right, next fight up. Almabaev returns against Jose Johnson. Now, Kyle, you're the DraftKings expert here, my friend. You're the DraftKings expert. But from what I've seen, whenever DK marks somebody as out or a fight canceled, usually they know something the general public doesn't, don't they? Like, is this fight happening?
I didn't see that they had one as out, but yeah, I feel like I have seen DraftKings kind of break the news before with those. So I've also seen it as an accident too, where maybe it was left over from the previous time that they fought. But yeah, hopefully this fight's happening.
Okay, because shout out to my guy Gordo Gambles, a previous podcast guest here. He posted up something where they do have Jose Johnson marked as out for this contest. Now, there's been no announcement. There's been no follow-up since then. He's still on the site. I haven't gone back to look myself to see if they changed him from out or not. But that was something that got posted. He is cutting guys down to 125. So for the first time in his life, this guy is going down to 125 pounds. And he reminds me of Phil Rowe, Kyle, a lot. Like physically speaking and stylistically speaking. He's a weird, awkward striker. Lots of knees and elbows, real tall, super lanky. But he's more of a grappler than he is a striker, which is really weird considering his frame. He should probably be more of a striker than a grappler, but he always ends up scrambling. He looks for subs. He's got a decent opportunistic submission game, but he also gets caught. He's got 4 submission losses on his record. And after coming to the UFC, going 1-1 at 135, he's decided he's going to try his hand down at 125 pounds. And I just think that's a bad idea. I don't know where that weight's going to come from. I have no clue where or how this guy is going to find 10 pounds to lose. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's having too much of a struggle and they call this fight because he can't make weight. I think that's very realistic. But if he does make weight, I think he's got a motherfucker waiting for him. My boy Almabaev is one of my favorite prospects. 19-2. He's my favorite Kazakhstani coming up here. He's 30 years old. He's in his fighting prime, and he is relentless. 2-0 in the UFC. He tapped out Ode Osborne. He did what he had to do, grinding on CJ Vergara, which I'll be honest with you guys, not many people can out-cardio and out-grind CJ Vergara. That's how he wins. So it's pretty freaking impressive that Asu was never even in any danger in that fight and just kind of controlled the guy for 15 straight minutes, because not a lot of people can do that to a guy like CJ. And he's frankly pretty damn near impossible to finish these days. So I love what I see from Asu Almabaev. He's very smart. He's another GSP type for me, Kyle, where he'll take what you give him. If you show him the opportunity to win, he will take that. So if he can tap you out, sure, he will. But if he's got to coast and grind on you, he will. Like, he's just going to take whatever the least resistance path is. And I love that. That's super high IQ. And I think he's going to go a long way in the UFC. He's a big favorite in this spot. He's another minus 500 favorite on the board right now. But I think he's the rightful favorite. And I think Johnson being caught the way he has been in his last couple of fights, if this kid gets his back, it's a wrap. I absolutely believe that he's going to tap this guy out if he gets on any type of dominant position on Jose Johnson. And I think he will. Frankly, I think he will. I like Asu Almabaev, and I like him by submission probably to go ahead and win this fight.
Yeah, the line might be a little bit too wide, because if this is a striking match, it's closer to pick 'em. But Johnson has been taken down 24 times in 4 fights in the octagon. And Almabaev is coming off a fight where he landed 9 takedowns. I just think it's clear as day he's going to go out there and control minutes on the ground, probably do enough to win 2, if not all 3 rounds there on the ground. But he is a good striker too, so he could win on the feet. It's just that if he's smart, he should be looking to take advantage of Johnson's weakness, which is his takedown defense. And I think that's what he'll do. Go out there, win 30-27, if not worse. So I agree with you. I like Almabaev. I think he's a solid prospect as well. But man, Johnson 8 inches taller, 6-inch reach advantage. he better be looking for takedowns early.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he absolutely should. But that's the thing, man. With those guys that are that tall and that lanky, sometimes they've got that pogo stick defense. You know what I mean? Their arm will hit the ground before you can get the rest of them down, that kind of thing. This guy don't do that, though. He shells up, he'll play bottom, he'll play guard, and he'll just kind of tip over and lose his balance. So I don't think there's going to be an issue with Almabaev getting this fight to the ground. He's got to watch out for that step-in knee on his way in. But if he gets in on those legs, we're on the ground, baby.
For sure.
All right. Next up, my nemesis is back. Miles Johns, Chapo himself, taking on Douglas Silva de Andrade. And I've seen my guy MMA Locker Room, lurking around the chat, coming in on this one to go ahead and listen to the breakdown here on this one. Guys, I bet Miles Johns. I know. It's sacrilege. I've talked so much garbage about Miles Johns, Kyle. I don't believe in him, but what I said at the top of the show is if you think somebody's got an unfair advantage, if you think somebody's got a narrative avenue, instead of bitching about it, just make money betting on them. This is a betting show. I am not the moral police here. So at the end of the day, even though I think Miles Johns is maybe getting a lot of help, you can see where his cardio concerns kind of stopped being an issue for him, where that recovery all of a sudden got real good real quick. I'm going to stop asking questions. I'm just going to bet the guy. Miles Johns is a power wrestler, power striker. He used to gas himself out like crazy, but his last couple of fights, ever since he got finished by John Castaneda in the third round, he just hasn't had those problems anymore. The pace Dan Arwetta put on this guy, guaranteed was going to break him. I was so happy with the no contest that day, man. You could not believe how excited I was to have that Dan Arwetta fight be called the way that it was in hindsight, because I thought Arwetta was just going to completely melt Miles Johns. But it turns out Miles Johns has superhuman cardio at this point, and instead of failing and instead of fading, he's now turning up the deeper the fight goes. And he comes out against Cody Gibson, and he does the same damn thing. Now he's taking on Douglas Silva de Andrade, who is 29 and 5, also a member of the Good Stuff club, but he's 38 years old. And the biggest thing for me here, man, is if they fought 4 years ago, I absolutely am all over Douglas Silva de Andrade. And I mean, like, backing up the Brinks truck. Like, this is a huge bet for me. But Douglas recently has started showing some signs of slowing down. He's 38 years old. He's not nearly as active as he used to be. And even though you can't knock him for losing to guys like Murphy and Nurmagomedov, it was extremely concerning to me that in a win over Cody Stamann, he got floored in the third round. Cody Stamann, who is not known for his power. We broke his fight down last week, and we did that beautifully, by the way. A lot of people said I was crazy for thinking Cody Stamann was just going to get boxed up and outstruck by Taylor Lapilus. I nailed that one. For all the shit I got wrong last week, I owe myself a little pat on the back for my breakdown on Taylor Lapilus, but Cody Stamann shouldn't be rocking anybody with those hands, Kyle. That's a massive red flag. So if Douglas Silva is trending down and you've got Miles Johns who is trending up, and you should see those thighs. My God, he is absolutely trending up with those things. If he's got the cardio to go 15 hard minutes and he's got the power to throw in round 3 like he has been recently, I think there's a chance he does what Cody Stamann couldn't do. Maybe he even gets Douglas Silva de Andrade out of there, because I think he hits extremely hard. And if he's got the power and the cardio and the gas to keep on throwing, I think he can hurt this old dude. Probably a decision, because both these guys are durable as shit, but I'm picking Miles Johns to go ahead and get this fight, man.
I don't hate it, but this is one where I just really didn't have any lean. I got to go back and rewatch their most recent fights. I didn't get time to get to this one today because I already knew these guys enough, I felt like. But the way I was thinking is, if when I was looking at it, it was a pick 'em line, and I said that I would rather have the guy that is plus money if this line shifts either way. I think I give Andrade the slight striking edge and then Johns the wrestling edge, but he just doesn't wrestle as much as I would like him to. So I think I'm going to take the post-USADA Andrade in this one, since he has the plus next to his name right now. But maybe I could change that pick tomorrow once I watch their recent films. Because I did remember Johns being, a cardio worry, but if that's fixed, then that's less of a worry, I guess. And he did shoot for 8 takedowns in his last fight, which is good to see. If he could do that again here, I'd probably do favor him slightly. But since Andrade has that plus money next to his name, I mean, we could actually think that Johns goes out there and wins all 3 rounds, but it's still 3 idiot judges that are making the calls for us. So I never know what those guys are going to think. So that makes me always lean towards the plus money when I don't have a lean. So I went with Andrade, but that could change by the end of the week. You can go check out my show on Friday. I'll have an official pick by then.
There you go. There you go. No, man. And I'm with you. You want plus money in this fight. So you know what I did? I parlayed him with Nate Maness. I got plus 132, baby. So I got plus money on Chapo coming in here into this fight. And I told my guy locker room, he was like, whoa, Clint, what are you doing? He's like, you don't bet on Miles Johns. What's going on? And Kyle, if you can't beat him, join him. I went, I'm going to get my money back one way or the other. And it's not happening betting against him. So I might as well bet on him. I'm going to get some of my money back. But I'm with you. Plus money in this spot, probably good money, probably a close fight. But yeah, man, I think he's patched up some of those cardio issues, and if he can chain takedowns like that, he's probably good to go in this spot. Douglas is a guy that'll brawl and give up those takedowns, and if he can land with some force in a couple of those spots too, I think we might sway it over to the way of the young kid, and that's where I'll be looking. We'll side with youth. I'll be an ageist on this one. Next fight up, we got Lucas Almeida taking on Timmy Cuamba. Timmy Twilight coming back here in this spot. Oh man, I was like, who the hell is this guy, Kyle? I was like, who is Timmy? I had to go back and look. Guys, Timmy's 8-2. He's 0-1 off Dana White's Contender Series. He lost his debut by split decision to Oki. And if you are having a hard time remembering that fight like I did, it's because he got signed the week of. He came in on super short notice. He's normally a 145er, took the fight up at 155, and he's like a local Vegas kid. So they were like, oh shit, we need somebody. When that fight fell apart, he raised his hand because he got beat on Dana White's Contender Series and never got that call. He's your classic Dana White's Contender Series failed experiment that's going to go ahead and get the call up because they need him, and now they got a contract for him. So he's going to be in this spot here. More low volume than I remembered, I'll be honest with you. I kind of felt like that fight with Oki, it went to split decision, and I thought it was like a really back and forth battle, man. But rewatching the fight, Kyle, I don't think it should have been a split. Oki controlled that whole fight with his jab, and he outlanded Timmy Twilight like 3-1. It was crazy. I don't know how. It was the classic modern MMA judging. I don't know why that fight was a split. It shouldn't have been. Oki won that thing clear as day. But I will give Timmy a little bit of credit. He was on a week's notice, up a weight class, and that's a tough call. That's a hard thing to pull off. He fought admirably under those circumstances, right? He's moving back down to 145 here in this spot, and he does have quick, snappy hands when he decides to pull the trigger. I like his combos. His 1-2 is super fast, but it seems like he explodes real quick, and then he's got to take a little bit of time to reload because, like I said, even though he's fast, he ended up being just a little bit low volume. There's a lot of distance and time between those combos that he throws where he can fall behind on. He does feint well, and he sets up level changes with those feints, and then he fakes those level changes to set up his head strikes. I kind of like the game of Timmy Twilight overall, but I'm just not sure that he's UFC caliber, man. You go back 2-3 fights, and he got called up to Combate, which is one of the, I guess, better-ish regional shows out there, and he got tapped out in round 1. Like, he left his neck out on a takedown, immediately got choked out, and then went to Tough Enough, which I think is a step down as far as the regional shows are considered. So I'm a little bit worried about Timmy's grappling. I'm a little bit worried about his submission defense. Lucas Almeida, 33 years old. He's 1-2 off Dana White's Contender Series. So he got his UFC win, but it's not been great for him. He got flatlined by my guy, Andre Touchy-Feely, in his last fight. And I went back and I listened to my own breakdown on that one because I couldn't really remember what I said. And I talked about how that fight could have been extremely close, and I wanted to bet Andre Feely. And it all came down to if Feely would distance himself or not, because he usually fights extremely close. He came out and he thunderously put this guy down in round 1. He found his opening shot, sat down on a punch, rocked him, knocked him out in the very first round, got him out of there. But that's how Feely starts every fight. And if he doesn't get the finish, he just kind of doesn't really have those big moments the rest of the way. So I wonder how that would have played out if he didn't just crack him on the button perfectly. Somehow this guy KO'd Mike Trizano in his UFC debut. Now, I was higher on Trizano apparently than I should have been. Turns out he's not everything he was cracked up to be. He's fighting bare knuckle FC these days, right? But it seems like that's kind of the high point of his career. Coming in short notice, knocking a known guy out. He's like an Alexander Hernandez. Is he ever going to live up to that debut? Is he ever going to be that guy again? Man, I'm not even sure. I'm not sure. I talked all about his toughness, his willingness to trade. He'll get in the pocket with people, take one to give one, that kind of thing. He does have 5 wins on his record by sub, so he's got an okay enough ground game, it looks like, but we haven't really seen it in the UFC because the one time he grappled, he got busted by Pat Sabatini. Tall order to out-grapple Pat Sabatini. So this is a couple of guys who could realistically be very disappointing. This is Dana White's Contender Series 2.0. Like, good luck. You know what I mean? 2 low-level guys. Maybe neither of them should be in the UFC. And pick your side. Timothy's taking a lot of money. He's minus 205 at this point. And I think we might have a guy that people think is awesome in his UFC debut loss. We've talked about that a couple times recently. I'm absolutely someone who is victim's the wrong word. I've done that. What am I trying to say? I have shined people too hard for their UFC debut where they got kind of outclassed, but they looked good enough that like we gave them credit in a loss for being better when, than we thought they were, that kind of thing. I've done that. So I can't throw stones. I got a glass house. I'm not going to be able to tell anybody they shouldn't do that. But damn, man, I think people are getting a little too high on Timmy here in this spot. Lucas Almeida is a plus 170 underdog, and he is an absolute dog. If you're going to get behind on volume, I think I like the dog. If you've got a submission defense problem, I think I like the dog. So this is definitely a dog or pass spot for me, and the wider this line gets, the more likely I am to take Lucas Almeida. And believe it or not, this might be that gross, sneaky spot where I try to hit a submission prop because I don't think anybody's going to be looking for Almeida to grab a sub. And if you look back at Timmy's record, that's definitely a path to victory for this guy. And if he needs to get back on track, it's an option. Lucas Almeida by sub is like 10-1 offshore, man. I might be having a piece.
I don't hate it. I did think that the line would be a little bit closer. I think if this is a striking match, it's probably pretty close. Almeida's a little bit more aggressive. I think Cuamba's a little bit more technical. But I do ultimately favor Cuamba because of his wrestling game. I think Almeida is there to be taken down, and I think Cuamba could go out there and maybe keep it close on the feet and then steal rounds with takedowns and just hang out in top control time. So I am picking Cuamba to win, but yeah, I'm not laying minus 205 on him. And if I had to bet the fight, I'd probably rather have the underdog and plus 1,000 on submission. I don't hate that edge if that's the way you want to go.
Oh,
but yeah, I mean, I just think Cuamba will do enough to go out there, land takedowns, win 2 rounds on the scorecards. But Almeida could be the more dangerous striker too. So maybe like a finish only type of bet when that releases on Almeida could be something I'd look at. But yeah, I think it'll be pretty close, and then the takedowns give me the ultimate edge for the Cuamba.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's where, we're seeing the fight kind of the same way, right? And that's the trick with betting is if you break it down, you see it the right way, you got to pick your spots. And you could be right. If he doesn't get caught in a sub, he probably grinds his way to a decision. If he gets caught in a sub, then I'm looking like a genius, cash a 10-1 prop and maybe a money line. Like, I haven't bet this one yet, guys. I'm talking like I've got money on it yet. I don't have money on it yet. I might add that sub prop. Maybe I get to a money line in this spot, but it's a close fight. It's a gross fight. And I just don't think we should really be high on either of these guys at this point. So it'd be more of a fade on the fact that Timmy's just way too big of a favorite for me. And there is Uncle Wheezy. Shout out, buddy. Good to see you. I shouted you out earlier in the show for teaching me how to pronounce names. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you, my guy. All right, everybody. Co-main event time. And I can't believe I'm saying that. Gross co-main event. Ikram Aliskerov takes on Antonio Trocoli. We talked about Trocoli like 2 weeks ago. And I had to remind everybody who the hell this guy is. Because he is another one of these Dana White's Contender Series guys that popped and had to go disappear into the shadows. 12-3, and he is 1-0 off the Contender Series, but not in the UFC. He had to go prove himself on the regional scene after getting a popped test for what is essentially man-made testosterone, and they pumped him full of it. Boy, let me tell you, this guy's got a physique on him. That TRT for these poor souls who can't get it up, apparently. He choked out some bum on the regional scene, and Dana was like, all right, kid, come on back. They have no problems post-USADA signing everybody on all the good stuff. They had him matched up against Umar C. And I think he ducked Omar C. So they turned him right back around and they were like, all right, you're fighting Aliskerov now then. How about that? they put this kid in a corner, Kyle. I feel bad for him a little bit. Now, he is a slick grappler, BJJ black belt, big, powerful blast double legs, very old school position over submission grappling. He's got that boa constrictor body creep where it's just next position, one step ahead, next position, squeeze, shoulder pressure. And the next thing you know, he's around your neck and you've made 5 mistakes in a row trying to get out and he's just tightened it up and you're done. I love the way this kid grapplers. As a BJJ guy myself, I love the way this guy grapples, but his stand-up is a huge question mark. I don't think he's very good on the feet. We haven't seen a lot of it, and it's basically just to get him into the clinch and get him to the ground. So it's not really much to write home about. It's serviceable, but I don't know if he can stand with much of anybody at the UFC level. Tricoli will have a 6-inch reach advantage here in this spot. Aliskerov is 15-1, 2-0 off Dana White's Contender Series. Both those wins, round 1 KOs. Now, before we glaze this guy too hard, he has fought a very questionable level of competition. It's about as soft as you can get. Phil Hawes, which, by the way, I got so much shit for, Kyle. So many Hawes truthers, and we got a nice easy peasy round 1 KO in that spot. I'm sorry. I told you guys Phil Hawes was a fraud forever ago. Got KO'd by Chris Curtis. Yeah, I looked stupid when I bet Duran win against him, but we got paid on Dolidze. We got paid on Aliskerov. We got paid on Bruno Ferreira. You can fade the chin of Phil Hawes all day, and unfortunately, the good times are over. He's gone now, so I hope you guys got in while you could. But he fought Hawes, he fought Warley Alves, and that is a easy KO round 1 path in the UFC so far. Is this guy a step up? Probably not. Probably another showcase fight. But I will tell you, I don't think I'm as sold on Aliskerov as everybody else is. Yeah, shocker, right? I'm going to make an argument for the dog here. We've got the biggest favorite on the board, 9-1 favorite, Ikram Aliskerov. His only professional loss to Khamzat Chimaev. Now, he starts extremely fast, guys. The one thing I did note is that he had his mouth hanging open badly against Warley Alves in his last fight. Now, right after it looked like he started to get tired, Kyle, he nuked the man, he put him down, he was dead, and they had to call in the stretcher to carry that poor man out of the cage. He's got vicious, ungodly power on the feet. He reminds me a lot of Bruno Ferreira. Now, last week, I bet Dustin Stolfus against Bruno Ferreira. That cost me because I thought Stolfus would win the cardio game, right? I thought he would outlast him. I thought he would tire him out, use the grappling, get this thing a little bit deeper in the fight, and then let's see who wins at that point. And I kind of want to make that same argument here for Tricoli, but I am not going to take the plunge. I am not going to bet him. I'm not going to pound my chest and tell you he's winning this fight. I really thought Dustin would be the guy to pull that move. I don't think Tricoli's the guy to pull that move, but he's got the skill set where he could if Aliskerov is not the guy we think he is. It's a live bet spot, guys. There's no way I can lay minus 900 on this guy, and his KO prop is still going to be like minus 450. So there's no way to bet him. He should win by round 1 KO, but if he doesn't, if he gets tired, if Tricoli gets takedowns, he could expose this guy. It's one of those spots. So it will be a live opportunity. I'll be looking to see if we want to click this guy, if it gets to round 2, that type of thing. But I'm going to swim with the rest of the fishes. Ikram Aliskerov probably wins by thunderous round 1 KO. What do you make of this one here, Kyle?
Yeah, we haven't seen Tricoli in 2.5 years. And he just pulled out of a fight like 3 weeks ago, but now he's all of a sudden better and he can take on a tougher matchup. I just don't know how he's going to win. He is on some special supplements, and he's like 5 inches taller. He's a huge guy. But I just don't know how he wins if he's not going to get a flash KO or just grab onto a neck at some point. I think that Ikram's going to be the clear minute winner. And I also just think he's going to knock him out at some point, probably in the first round. There's just so many unknowns on the Tricoli side where I'm not going to lay a minus 900 or worse line. I mean, especially with all these idiot judges, if it does go the distance, I don't trust any of them. And I mean, with 10%, all the extra edge you get on that minus 900, we could see an injury. We could see a DQ. Like I'm never going to lay that type of line on these big boys who could eat one shot and go down. So definitely taking Ikram to get the win, but complete pass on the betting line unless they put a TKO at a good price.
All right. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. It's MMA. Shit happens. And these DQs are where it's at. Man, I was kicking myself. I was really cheering for I was rooting for Thiago Moises to take the DQ this past week, man. Ludovic Klein, another one of those guys I bet against and learned my lesson because he's on all the good stuff. I shouldn't have done that. But when he kicked Moises in the cup the second time, I was like, come on, Thiago, take a knee, go down. We can get those sneaky DQ wins in these kind of crazy spots sometimes, but probably just a round 1 KO. All right, guys, it's main event time. Make sure you show our guy Kyle Marley some gratitude for hanging out here with us today. Do me a favor and hit the like button. There are 896 of you watching this show live on a Monday night. You guys are kicking some serious ass. Let's go. Thank you for being here on the home of fight. Hit the like button if you haven't already and subscribe here to the channel. Join the Telegram, jump in the Discord, come hang out with some other fight fans and gamble with us. Why don't you? Main event time. It's Alex Perez, and he's making yet another appearance, taking on Tatsuro Taira. Now, I mentioned Josh Van being the hottest prospect in the game right now, but right before him, it was Tatsuro Taira. This guy came out of left field and has just been absolutely crushing. Now, Alex Perez, he's been in the headlines a lot lately. 32 years old, a consummate fringe contender type of guy. Came back after an extremely long layoff and made weight. That was a big deal, Kyle. 125 pounds. This guy was known for pulling out of fights. He was known for canceling. He was known for missing weight. And I, frankly, myself, didn't suspect that he was actually going to make the walk. I thought he was going to go the way of the Tags Mexican Devil, where he would show up overweight for the last fight on his contract. And Dana was just like, all right, we tried, man. F it. You're out of here. That's too many times missing weight. We're done with you. I thought he was going to get cut. But he made weight. He fought Muhammad Mokaev, and a lot of people thought he might have won that fight. It was a very close, very competitive fight, and he turned around 1 month later, which was shocking to me because that was the big thing for me, man. He made weight the one time. What if his body rejects it? It's a super quick turnaround. If he got down and sucked himself out and made weight on that one time, congratulations, but can you do it again? Oh, he did it. He did it again. He made weight, and then he won with flying colors. This guy knocked Matthias Nicolou the fuck out. And thank God I was in on that shit. I called the KO, called the money line bet. We were having a good night with that main event. So thank you, Alex Perez, for coming back and getting us a win. But he's 1-1 since his return, and they are turning him around yet again just 2 months later to take on Tatsuro Taira. Now, the activity is great. He's making up for lost time. That's fantastic. But at what point does it become detrimental? Even for people who don't struggle as badly with the weight cuts as a guy like Perez does, 3 fights in that short order, it takes a toll. Even on guys that don't cut a lot of weight. That's a lot of damage and strain and stress on your body. Now, I know he got in and out against Matheus Nicolou. Didn't really take much damage or anything like that, but this weight cut is going to wear on him doing it again this quickly. He's very well-rounded. He's a very good wrestler. We saw Muhammad Mokaev struggle to get this man to the ground. And he's really got some striking chops. He's got decent power for the weight class. That's something that you really can't overlook in this weight class. If you can knock people out at this weight, you're dangerous. Not everybody can pull that. Tatsuro Taira, undefeated, 24 years old, a very exciting prospect, and he is finally getting his opportunity to knock on the door of contendership. We've been waiting for this, man. We knew it was coming. I am really glad that they didn't rush this kid because they could have ruined another prospect. Now, he's not ready for the title yet, but this is that measuring stick. This is that opportunity to see, is he ready or does he need another year? We're about to find out. Now, his last win was over Carlos Hernandez, and boy, did he win that with flying colors. For a submission guy, he went ham on this guy, knocked him out in round 2. I think a lot of people were very surprised with the striking of Tatsuro Taira. We've known him as a chain grappler. We've known him as a submission artist, but nobody really thought he had hands. He's shown in his last couple of fights that his striking is caliber. His striking is decent. And if he's got that striking box check to go with that high caliber grappling, this could be a real problem. I like Tatsuro Taira, man. And I talked earlier in the evening about how I felt like they split Taira and Van up because they wanted both these guys to potentially get wins. Here he is sitting a favorite over Alex Perez, and a lot of people, I think, are going to fall for the trap of betting on Alex Perez. A lot of us just got paid on Alex Perez. A lot of people just got their nights ruined by Alex Perez. He's going to have a lot of hype coming into this spot where they just don't believe the kid is ready for this spot. And I'm the opposite. I think Taira can strike with Perez. And I'm old enough to remember when the biggest issue with Alex Perez was his submission defense. This guy's got 5 losses by sub, Kyle. Alexander Pantoja got him out in round 1. Davison Figueiredo, guillotine, round 1. Joe Benavidez, round 1. Like, armbar, back in 2016, round 1. This guy has had a problem protecting his neck and his limbs his entire professional career. I do not believe it's a mistake that the UFC has paired him up against Tatsuro Taira. You buy low and you sell high, my friend. The UFC brought him in. He got a big, spectacular knockout that, frankly, he probably wasn't supposed to get. And they went, now's when people are going to learn about Tatsuro Taira. I think the UFC wants Taira to come in here and choke this guy out. And frankly, I think he's going to do it, Kyle. I do believe that he'll be able to find himself in positions that Muhammad Mokaev couldn't, because the hands will allow him to set up the grappling. Everybody saw Perez stuffing those takedowns over and over and over. You're not afraid of the hands of Muhammad Mokaev. Shit, he doesn't have hands. He's got pillow fists on him. Nobody's scared of the striking of Muhammad Mokaev. So he knew the takedown was coming. He was prepared for that takedown every single time and stuffed it every single time. Now, when you got to worry about a guy that's got some pop in his hands, when you got to worry about eating an overhand or a hook, you're not quite as ready for that takedown. I think the mixed bag game of Tatsuro Taira will allow him to get takedowns where Muhammad Mokaev failed. And when they get in one of these transitions, he's going to be one step ahead of Perez, and we're going to see the old Perez come shining through. I think Tatsuro Taira wins by submission and announces himself to the world as a contender on Saturday.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, Taira he's a real deal prospect, and his submission grappling is so slick. Perez has been submitted 5 times. I do think that ultimately this will be the 6th time he gets submitted. But I would like to see this fight get extended, see how he looks on the feet here. Perez is a really good wrestler too, so it'll be impressive if he's able to go out there and land takedowns against Perez and get into dominant positions. But if he can beat Perez in the striking, then, yeah, we probably got a future title contender, title holder on our hands here. But instead of laying like a 65% betting line, I would rather just take that submission prop, pay like the 40% betting line, get it at plus 150, hopefully even better. So that's the way I think I would rather look at it, just because he's not proven enough to think that he's going to win 65% of the time if he can't go out there and get takedowns on a guy like Perez. And I just think the biggest weakness for Perez is being submitted where Taira is his best. So I think that's the biggest edge in this fight is the submission grappling on Taira's side. I'll be looking how good he is on the wrestling, see if he can get it there. And I also just want to see the striking. I want to see this fight go till the championship rounds, maybe see how he can look on the feet for an extended period of time. But he's got 25 minutes to work with, and I think that the sub will be there at some point. So I agree, Taira by submission, and that probably is what the UFC wants as well.
All right. I'm glad we agree. I think we're on the same page. I like it, and I'm not laying minus 170, Kyle. I parlayed Tatsuro Taira with Nate Maness, and that comes out to minus 111, 3.33 units, to win 3. I'm laying just a little bit of chalk at a near pick'em price tag. I like me some Tatsuro Taira. I'm just going to pick the winner, and I think he gets the win, and I think he gets his arm raised on Saturday. I'll find my way onto that sub prop as well, but the reason I want the money line is if this goes 25 minutes, I want the out for this thing to win by decision. There's a chance. And if he does what he did in his last fight and comes out and he's got more hands than we expect him to, if he wins by KO, I want to get paid for my read. So I'm going to parlay him up with Nate Maness, who is my anchor for the week. And we're just going to go ahead and get paid on the money line here with Taira. Like I said, I'll find my way to inside the distance. I'll find my way to sub. He will anchor the submission special, and we're going to hit that shit this week. We're going to hit that submission special on Saturday with Tatsuro Taira being the last leg of it. Let's freaking go, everybody. That is UFC Vegas 93. Thank you all for hanging out with us tonight. Thank you for being here and going through these breakdowns. Kyle, my man, thank you for filling in here this week on short notice and breaking all these fights down with me. I appreciate the hell out of you. I know you've got content. I know you've got stuff going on. Make sure you let the people know where they can find you, how they can support you, and where they can find your next show.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. I always love talking fights with you. Anytime you need a late replacement, hit me up. Hopefully I'll be free to do that. But yeah, I mean, you can find me on Twitter at BigMarley3. I usually post everything there, but I do a free show on YouTube over at the Ship It Nation YouTube, and we do a more DFS angle show where we try and hit every fight every single week based on how we think it's going to go on DraftKings. Or not really I don't play much FanDuel for DFS, DraftKings for DFS only. But I think it's a good show with my co-host, Title Town. You should go check it out. It's 1 p.m. every Friday currently. Maybe that'll change in the future, but it's free, and hopefully we can help you guys win some money. Good luck to you, Clint. Good luck to everybody listening. I'm looking forward to this card.
Love to hear it, my guy. All right, everybody, that will do it. Make sure you subscribe here. We'll be back on Thursday for the Total Takedown. We'll be back on Friday for that undefeated post-weigh-in show where we get the good stuff and we bust that tinfoil cap out there for you. And then, of course, Fight Night Saturday. Hope you all make piles, get out there, cash some tickets. Good luck on your degenerate action if you're betting baseball and hockey the way I am. I really need the Panthers to get their shit together here in this game. But good luck out there, everybody. We'll talk with you soon. Appreciate the hell out of it. Let's roll.